Be aware of critical developmental periods in your dogs when you're socializing them, especially from the time they're leaving the litter, 6, 7, 8 weeks old, or before they leave the litter. Do not take puppies out of the litter before 8 weeks, right? So we used to do a lot of this in working dog circles, right? We used to remove puppies from the litter a little early, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, so they would bond with the handler, which is very good for their focus on you. They definitely bond with you. They're really into you, but they learn a lot about dog-to-dog interaction and dog communication in those last couple of weeks in the litter, right? So when they break down critical developmental periods, like up until 2 weeks old, your puppy's eyes are closed and they can't hear anything, right? So right around 12 to 14 days, their eyes open, they begin to become slightly visually aware. They still can't track and follow things, but they're seeing things. About 18 days, 17 or 18 days, their ears open, they can start to hear. Up until that point, they can't hear, right? And so they can feel vibration, and they smell things, and so now they're beginning to see, and so they're beginning to orient in there. And so from that point at about 3 to 4 weeks, up to 8 weeks, 9 weeks, in that range, they're learning a lot about dog-to-dog interaction, because they're in with their mom and a group of other dogs, right? And they're wrestling around and biting each other and learning doggy communication. And that last couple of weeks especially is really important. Like I keep them into 8 weeks, and then my puppies start going home at 8 weeks. And if they're there into 9 weeks, I'm okay with that too, right? At that point, I've started to give them alone time. We've started to separate them for periods each day, but they still are in that group. And the dogs that we've allowed that to happen have much better dog skills when they get older. And dogs pulled out of the litter early can have bad dog skills as they get later, unless somebody went to very extensive efforts to get them socialized with other dogs when they were little. So you have to be a little cautious about that stuff when they're young. But those experiences have to be controlled. So there's that period where they're learning about dogs. They begin to learn about humans in there somewhere too, from about 5 or 6 weeks on up to 10, 12, 14, 16 weeks is when they really begin to learn human interaction. So you want to make sure they're being around people. They don't necessarily have to be touched by everybody. You want them to be handled in this period and things like that by people that they're comfortable with. You want them to be around and see a wide variety of people, men, women, big people, small people, people with hats, people with all these kinds of things. You want to expose them to a lot of that stuff. And then as they're leaving the litter too, that's when they really begin to be exposed to novel environments and things like that. So I may change their home environment to get them used to certain things, but the bulk of environmental socialization happens when they leave the litter and they start going to new places as well. And that's when they begin to learn about new environments and that kind of stuff as well. So that first, like I said, 16 weeks, 4 months is really important. And this is the point where lots of vets still, it shocks me all the time, but there's still veterinarians out there telling people not to take their puppy out of their home until it's had its 3rd round of vaccines, which is about 4 months old, which is about the close of critical socialization in a lot of dogs, right? So you've missed huge opportunities for exposure in that pot. And my personal experience is the risk of disease is smaller than the risk of inadequate socialization in those circumstances, right? And so it's really important. Avoid dog parks, the Humane Society. Avoid the vet if you can, right? That's where the sick dogs go, right? But getting them out in the world and exposing them to places like that are really important, right, in that period of time. So don't wait, right? If we vaccinated our puppies right when they're weaned, their first vaccination, right when they're weaned, and at that point, up until then, their immunities transferred from their mother, right, through their milk, through the type. They get immunities transferred to the mother, so we can socialize them while they're still nursing because they're getting immunity from mom. Then that immunity wears off after they're weaned, so in the first little bit there, we'll vaccinate them the first time, but as soon as they get their first vaccine, we're going out in the world, right, in those circumstances, and that's much more important than isolating them. But don't miss those periods, right? Don't isolate your dog during those critical developmental periods, right?